The October refines are finally here, and this is an interesting batch, so let's just go ahead and jump in and see exactly how good these units are now. Let's start off with one of the fan favorites, Tsubasa. So we have a Mirage Feather. Essentially what this is going to give you is speed +3, effective against armored and cavalry foes. If she initiates combat or if she's within 2 space of an ally, she's going to get that attack and speed +6, which she already had before. She's also going to get offensive no follow-up, which is really nice. And then also if a unit had initiated combat before Tsubasa, so right, that like blade session effect, she's going to be able to do a follow-up attack before the foe can counterattack. So like that desperation effect essentially, right? So not much of a big difference here from her base weapon, but then we jump into the actual refine and we get Enables Canto 2. At start of combat, if her HP is greater than or equal to 25%, she's going to get another attack and speed +5, and she's also going to be able to neutralize her own penalties to attack and speed during combat. And then also, if a unit had initiated combat before her, she's going to get another attack and speed +5. So overall, what is Tsubasa getting here? She's getting speed +3, she's getting up to +16 attack and speed during combat, and she's getting that desperation effect, she's getting a flood with no follow-up, Canto 2, and then even some penalty neutralization to attack and speed. So overall, what is Tsubasa trying to do? Well, she's trying to kill things, right? That's like really what she's trying to do the most. She really wants to just go in, completely annihilate something before she even gets hit, and then get out of there. Now, how good of a unit is she really at this, right? And this is the big question, because there has been a ton of melee flyers lately, right? It's kind of becoming like the new popular archetype to pump out. Right, we got like just recently, we got Halloween Anna, we got Legendary Alencia, we got Arian as a free unit, Summer Shez as a free unit, and there was also like really good units beforehand who got better, right, like Har and stuff like that. So she has some very stiff competition at the moment. Tsubasa can do really well here, right? She has that effective damage, which really does help her out against those armors and those calves, and she's getting a massive 16 attack speed. That's definitely something you don't want to underestimate, and the fact that she can double before the foe can counter is really nice as well. The thing too is that she has offensive no fall, which means that her B slot is open for other skills. She doesn't have to run like a flow skill, and because she has Canto 2, she doesn't have to run like a trace skill, so it's very, very open. So you can go for something like, you know, Guard Bearing 4 if you want to go more defensive. You could even go for Gambit to get that extra true damage, because she doesn't have slaying in her weapon, which means that's like she really can't proc specials all that reliably. So you could go for like a really big special, like, you know, like Miracle or something like that to get extra true damage, which could help her kill things as well. The attack speed penalty neutralization is okay. It's not really the best effect in our current meta. Legendary Robin did get nerfed a tiny bit, but he's still really, really good. So like typically having penalties isn't like the worst thing currently in the meta. So this might be better later on, but at the moment, it's not crazy. And it also removes one of her better A skill options, which is like attack speed clash, which also gives that effect. So what you're really gonna want is not like Flared Sparrow, obviously, which would be insane, but that's a big investment. So overall, how do I feel about Tsubasa? I think she's a pretty good refine here. It's solid, but I don't think it's anything insane. And one of the reasons for that is that as a unit who wants to nuke really hard, she's lacking one of the key things, which is damage reduction piercing, right? You really want DR piercing, especially on a flying unit, because they don't have that available through skills, right? They can't run Special Spiral 4, they can't run Physical no follow-up, and so because of that, you really want that in your kit. And instead, they kind of doubled down on effects that flyers already have a lot of access to, like Trace or like, you know, like offensive no follow-up. So I think she's going to be good. I definitely think she's usable, and if you like really invest into her, she's going to do great, right? Like melee flyers are just really strong right now, so she's going to be a great unit. But do I think she's like as good as like say like Halloween Anna or even like Alencia or even Arian? I don't think so. I honestly just don't think she has the amount of firepower where it makes up for the lack of support she's offering that Alencia and Arian have, or she doesn't have as much firepower as someone like Halloween Anna. So overall, solid refine, but let's move on to our next unit. Our next unit is going to be the Chad himself with his Wildcat Dagger. So we have at start of combat, if his HP is greater than 25%, he's going to get a bonus to his stats equal 4 plus the curt bonus on each of the foe stats. So, right, so you're looking at those visible buffs they have, and you're going to get that plus 4 to his stats. Then he's also going to inflict a penalty based off that visible bonus as well. And then lastly, he's going to get anti-guard. So this is actually a really interesting weapon. I'm not like the biggest fan, but I think it's cool. It's kind of like Leg Yarn's older weapon where like whenever the foe has visible bonuses, Chad is going to go off super hard, right? Like first of all, he's going to get a massive stat boost. Let's say they have +6 to all stats. Right, that alone, he's getting +10 to all stats. That's a really big stat increase. Like that's like a PR of weapon stat increase, right? And then he's also inflicting a penalty on them. So like they're essentially losing their stat bonus. Because like if let's say they have +6 to all stats, well Chad's going to inflict -6 to all stats. So that visible bonus they had is pretty much gone. So it's going to give Chad a massive stat swing, which is really nice. And then he's also going to get anti-guard, which means it's going to be a little bit more easy to hit those specials. Now let's look at the actual refine. So if he initiates combat, or if the foe's HP is greater than or equal to 75%, he's going to get another plus 4 to all stats. He's going to get some damage reduction against the foe's first attack by 30%, and he gets 10% true damage based off his speed during combat. Okay, so the thing is with Chad, I think this is a decent weapon. It's not bad. The thing is, it's missing some like key effects, right? Like he really wants slaying with anti-guard. That's what makes anti-guard so strong, because it can allow you to reliably proc specials like, you know, Ruptured Sky or Moonbow, or you can even go for bigger specials like Lethality, right? And when you have the anti-guard, it works really well with special acceleration, because a lot of units don't have full tempo. They'll have like half tempo, but not the full amount, which means that you can really accelerate into big specials. But without slaying, it makes it much more difficult. The other thing about his weapon you have to consider is that it's really based off what the foe is doing. If the foe isn't running a visible bonus, this weapon loses a lot of firepower. You're essentially only getting plus 4 to all stats and anti-guard in this base weapon, which really does not like hit the cut of what we're trying to do nowadays. And so I think like Chad can be very good in the right situation, right? When the bonuses are all pumped up on the enemy, he's going to be great. But when they aren't, he's going to be pretty mid, and he's not going to be able to really hit hard enough to kill a lot of things, because he doesn't have like reliable special procs. The other thing, of course, is like he gets that damage reduction, which is nice, so it opens up his A slot. So you can either double down and go for like something like Remote Sparrow and have even more damage reduction, or you can go for like Hexblade or something like that to add to his damage. And then the true damage is nice, but really they should have added more. 10% really isn't that much nowadays. Typically you're going to see 20% or even 25% on like the insane units. So I think they could have done like 15% even to just make him a little bit better. Overall, decent refine, but we'll have to see what the rearmed dagger brings. Maybe the arcane dagger will be just better, and that will be a better option for Chad. Okay, let's talk about our next lance flyer, Heath. So we have Hyperion Lance as effective against cavalry foes, pretty cool. If the foe initiates combat, or if the foe's HP is greater than or equal to 75%, we're going to get plus 4 to all stats. We're going to inflict attack, speed, and defense minus X on the foe, where X is 10% of Heath's visible defense at the start of combat. And he's also going to inflict guard. Nice solid little PRF weapon here. When we get to the refine, he's going to get another plus 4 to all stats. He's going to get a guaranteed follow attack, and he's going to reduce damage from attacks during combat, including AoEs notably, by X%, where X is 40% if it's the first combat and player phase or enemy phase, or it's 20%. So it's kind of like a guard bearing effect in a way, but a little bit weaker obviously. So overall, we're getting a decent amount of stats, right? We're getting plus 8 to all stats. We're getting a nice little penalty on the foe stats, which adds to, you know, Heath's overall bulk and firepower. We're getting some effective damage. We're getting guard to kind of slow down their specials and make him more bulky. Guaranteed follow attack, which does help him, even though he has like middling speed, right? Like guaranteed follow attack can be nice. And then some more DR just once again to bulk him up. So this is a really interesting place for Heath to be. They're trying to go for like a more defensive, flyer here, and it can work very well, right? Because Guard Bearing 4 is going to do amazing on him. It's going to give him all that extra damage reduction that will stack with the damage reduction in his weapon, or you could even go for Gambit, as he doesn't have slaying, so you can go for like a bigger special on him to get that true damage and additional bulk as well. The effect of the cavalry is also very nice. It can allow him to really act as a frontliner, right? He can act as that frontline unit with like guidance or soaring guidance, and then he can kind of block the path for those like offensive cav teams you'll run into who want to like run you down. Well, Heath's gonna be able to hit them pretty hard with that effective damage. Overall, this is a pretty solid refine. It gives Heath a nice little niche as a defensive melee flyer, but once again, like I said with like Tsubasa, it's a very competitive archetype at the moment. There's just so many good options, and I don't know if Heath is really at the top level of those, right? Like he has to compete with like, you know, Arian, who's giving charge to everybody, or even like Anna, who's super offensive, or like Alencia, who's offering like ridiculous support and being offensive. So I think Heath will be very good, but not like at the meta level in my opinion, right? You can definitely use him and you can definitely build him, just because how strong melee flyers are at the moment, and he's going to do a good job. But like, is this the best unit you can build? Personally, if you're going to be investing like Grails, I would go for Arian. He's just going to give you more bang for your buck, and he's going to last longer in my opinion because of that charge support. So overall, decent refine, but nothing like insane. Okay, let's move on to our god sword of the batch, Larcei. So we have slaying at start of combat if her speed is greater than the foe's speed, or if the foe's HP is greater than or equal to 75%. She'll get plus 4 to all stats. She'll neutralize the foe's bonuses, and she gets anti-guard. So pretty much the same as she was before, but she gets that nice anti-guard effect, which is pretty good. And then at start of combat, if her special cooldown is at max, she's going to get Times Pulse, so she'll get able to like drop down that cooldown, which works really well with Vital Astra. She'll also get +4 to all stats if her HP is greater than or equal to 25%. She'll get true damage equal to 15% of her speed during combat, but not with AoEs. And then also after combat, if her special cooldown is at max, she'll get another -1 special cooldown. So essentially, when we look at this in the full package, we're getting Slaying, +8 to all stats. We get to neutralize the foe's bonuses, which is nice. Anti-guard, which is also pretty good. Times +4, and 15% speed-based true damage. Now, this is a nice little upgrade. Larcei was already a pretty solid unit back in the day. She had definitely started to show her age, but this is a nice little upgrade that's going to give her the stats she needs. It's going to give her those guard and that nice like looping for Vital Astra. You could even use it for like godlike reflexes, but you're going to need some help to really get that going. And the true damage does make it so that she can get more consistent kills. The thing is with Larcei, you really have to think about though is like comparing her to her peers. It's kind of the thing I'm going to be saying throughout this entire video. Like we're in a very competitive like space here for archetypes, right? We have flying units, or melee flying units, which are really strong, and then also God Swords, which is the most competitive archetype in the entire game. And so when it comes to Larcei, I think this is a good upgrade. If you're a big Larcei fan, you could definitely make it work with that like a Vital Astra spam build. But she's not going to be as good as like the best God Swords in the meta by any means, right? Like she's not going to be competing with like Summer Fjorm or like Fallen Byleth or like, you know, any of those top tier God Swords. And I don't think she's even as good as some of the other ones that got refines, like Base Marita, I think had a really solid refine, or even some of the Byleths. The Byleths with like full no follow-up and like full tempo, and DR Piercing is really good as well. So the thing I can see Larcei struggling with a bit is like just not being fast enough, even with +8 to all stats. Units are really fast nowadays, so I can see her struggling with that a little bit, and I can also see her struggling to get some kills. Vital Astra spam is nice, but like getting exploded by like a Deadeye or something like that could also be a problem for her. So I think that Larcei definitely got a nice little upgrade, but it's not going to like make her insane. It's just going to make her usable in the current meta. Okay, let's move on to our final refine of the batch, Spring Fur. So we have Spring Fur with Bun Bun Baton. This gets Slaying, effective against armored foes. You get full no follow-up. And then at start of combat, if her HP is greater than or equal to 25%, she's going to get +4 to all stats. She will also get Anti-Guard. And then she also gets Phantom Speed 2, so if she has any kind of comparison with her speed to a foe's or an ally's, she'll get +7 speed to that, which is pretty solid. It really does help out a lot of ways. And then if the foe initiates combat, or if the foe's HP is greater than or equal to 75% at start of combat, she'll get another +4 to all stats, and she gets to reduce the damage reduction by 50% of the foe. So any kind of pierceable damage reduction gets halved. And then lastly, if her speed is greater than the foe's speed, she gets damage reduction based off that speed up to 40%. So this is like a pretty solid upgrade, I think, for Spring Fur. Before she was like pretty much just like no follow-up and Slaying and some armor effectiveness. But now she has like some really consistent ways to put out a lot of damage. When you compare it to even like someone like Tsubasa, who's in the same batch, Tsubasa gets definitely more stats, right? And the Desperation effect, which is really nice. But Fur getting the anti-guard and the damage reduction having is really big. Because it means that Fur's going to be able to go in, hit really hard, and then she's going to be able to reliably proc specials like Ruptured Sky, and it's going to do a lot of damage, right? Being able to have DR is something you should definitely not underestimate. And the cool thing is they even gave her damage reduction, so she's going to be able to like make sure she survives with that DR, and the Phantom Speed is really going to help her out as well, as it's going to like buff up that speed stat, so it makes it much more difficult for people to actually beat her in the speed check, which is always good. And the cool thing too is she has full no follow-up. Full no follow-up is really underrated in the current meta right now. A lot of people just have offensive no follow-up in these newer units, but having full no follow-up means that she's a lot of times going to be able to outspeed the enemy, and when they hit her, she's only going to get hit once instead of twice, which is a big deal because it means she can survive an enemy phase better. And as a melee flyer, you definitely want to be able to do that because the role in the meta currently is like that melee frontliner who is running like, you know, Soaring Guidance or Guidance 4, and then you really want to act as like a springboard for your entire team. So having full no follow-up is really strong and something you should not underestimate. Overall, I think that Spring Fur definitely got a nice refine here, right? Like it pretty much makes her like a budget version of Halloween Anna, which is not a bad place to be. Do I think this refine is like broken or insane? No, but it's a very solid upgrade, and I think it makes Fur a very usable unit. Okay, let's move on to the final part of the video. Who won the refine war for October? So at the very top of the refine war, I'm going to have Spring Fur in A tier. I think this is a solid upgrade that just makes Fur into a very usable melee flyer who can put out a nice amount of damage. Is it anything insane? No, but I think it's the best of this batch. I think everybody else ends up in B tier. Overall, this batch really isn't like an insane batch or like a meta defining batch, or like there's no refining here that's really gonna like make a giant splash in my opinion, but I do think it makes all of these units much more usable. So if they are your favorite, you definitely can feel comfortable investing into them, and you're definitely gonna get some work out of them. So even though this wasn't like a crazy batch, I always like to see that when everyone's around the same power level, everyone gets a nice solid upgrade, and everyone's units get usable. No one got like FE'd here, which is really nice. But now I'd love to hear from you. What do you think of this refine batch? Which of these refines are your favorite? Who are you planning to refine? And what kind of builds are you going to be giving them? Make sure to drop a comment down below letting me know. And as always, I'd like to thank my members for all their constant support. If you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. This has been Oblivion. I'll catch you all later.